Imagine you are a Russian drone operator sitting in a darkened room somewhere in occupied Ukraine. Your screen shows the feed from a CAGED kamikaze drone, one of hundreds launched tonight, part of the largest single-night barrage Russia has sent into Ukraine since the war began. Your drone is 50 kilometers from its target, 40, 30. You have done this hundreds of times. You know the flight path. You know the air defense gaps. You know that some percentage of the swarm gets through, and tonight is going to be one of those nights. 20 kilometers. The city below is dark. Your drone is low, fast, and invisible to radar. You feel it, the quiet confidence of a weapon that has terrorized a nation for 4 years. And then your screen goes dark, not because of a Patriot missile that costs $3 million, not because an F-16 intercepted your drone, because something small, fast, and cheap, something that costs a few $1,000s, that was launched from a ground station the moment radar detected you entering Ukrainian airspace, that flies on a preloaded three-dimensional map of the terrain so that GPS jamming cannot stop it. Detonated close enough to your drone to destroy it. Your Shahed, which cost $20,000 to build and ship and operate, is gone. Destroyed by something that costs less than a decent used car, and the system that launched it has already reloaded and is waiting for the next one. This is Ukraine's drone wall. And it is not a metaphor. It is not a slogan. It is a physical, deployed, combat-tested aerial barrier, built from artificial intelligence, FPV drones, ground launch platforms, and the hard-won lessons of 4 years of defending against the most sustained drone bombardment in the history of warfare. And it is working. And it is only the most visible layer of a fortification system so comprehensive, so layered, so precisely adapted to the specific conditions of this war that Russia's army, which invaded in 2022 expecting to conquer in days, is now systematically caged inside a kill zone architecture that military analysts are struggling to find historical precedents for. A new kind of air defense is taking shape in Ukraine. Not a missile battery or radar array, but a literal wall made of drones. Developed by attrition, a French defense technology firm, the system uses swarms of small, explosive-laden drones to create a moving barrier in the sky. The company describes it as a flying drone minefield, a curtain of autonomous interceptors designed to destroy incoming Russian attack drones and glide bombs before they can strike power plants, cities, or transport hubs. A flying drone minefield, not static, not fixed, not a line of sensors on a pole waiting passively for something to fly by. A curtain that moves, that adapts, that rebuilds itself after each interception, that is coordinated in real time by artificial intelligence, and that a single human operator can manage for an entire defended zone. The paradigm shift contained in that description is worth pausing on. Air defense, for the entire history of aviation warfare, has been about expensive missiles chasing expensive targets, a cost exchange that has always favored the attacker over the defender, because the attacker can build cheap drones, and the defender must fire costly interceptors to stop them. The drone wall inverts that equation. It fights cheap with cheap. It answers mass attacks with mass defenses, and it does so autonomously, continuously, at a scale that traditional air defense systems, no matter how sophisticated, cannot replicate. The DWS-1 system consists of 200 FPV-type interceptor drones connected to an AI-powered command system that can coordinate the swarm without relying on GPS. Each drone is equipped with explosives and can operate autonomously or under the control of a single operator managing up to 100 drones at once. Attrition has integrated 3D terrain mapping and a friend or foe identification system to enable the DWS-1 to function in electronic warfare conditions. If the DWS-1 proves effective during its first operational trials, Ukrainian forces could deploy it closer to the front lines to intercept glide bombs in real time. One operator, 100 drones. No GPS required. Functioning inside the densest electronic warfare environment on Earth, the skies above Ukraine, where Russian jamming systems have been operating continuously for 4 years, where GPS spoofing is routine, where every conventional guidance system faces constant disruption. The DWS-1 does not need GPS. It carries a preloaded three-dimensional terrain map and uses that map to navigate, to maintain its barrier position, to track incoming threats, and to vector interceptors onto targets autonomously. Russia's electronic warfare advantage, the capability, that has made Ukrainian drone operations more difficult throughout the conflict, does not work against a system that never needed the signals Russia is jamming. Combat testing in Ukraine began in late 2025, with the first major deployment in November-December. A critical development for countering mass night attacks that saturate traditional air defense. By 2026, full swarm autonomy is expected, where AI plans the entire attack sequence, minimizing the human factor and allowing for the defense of entire cities against thousands of drones monthly. Russian forces have already dubbed the Sting and Bumblebee interceptors the Shahed's nightmare, demoralizing enemy operators and creating no-fly zones for their drones. The Shahed's nightmare. That is what Russian drone operators are calling the Ukrainian interceptor systems that have been hunting their drones since the integrated defense network began operating at full scale. And the effect on operator morale, the psychological impact of flying a drone into Ukrainian airspace and watching it disappear from your screen, not because of a $1 million Patriot battery, but because of a cheap, autonomous interceptor drone that was waiting for you, is itself a weapon. When operators know that the drone wall is there, when they know that entering defended airspace means a high probability of interception, they fly differently. They hesitate. They route around defended areas. They adapt their tactics. And every adaptation they make creates a new data point that Ukraine's AI systems learn from, improving the next interception. Ukraine intercepted more than 90% of drones launched against the country during March 2026. According to the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense, 6,463 Shahed-type and other drones were launched, with 5,133 intercepted for a claimed interception rate of 90.25%. The highest intensity of drone attacks came on March 24th, when nearly 1,000 drones were launched in a single day, the largest such attack since the beginning of the full-scale invasion. Ukraine claimed 94.6% of aerial targets were neutralized or forced down during that attack. 94.6% interception rate during the largest single-day drone attack in the history of the war. Nearly 1,000 Russian drones launched in a single day, a number that would have overwhelmed Ukraine's air defenses in 2022, that would have caused catastrophic damage to power infrastructure in city centers and the people sheltering below, and almost all of them were stopped. Not by Patriot missiles costing millions of dollars per shot, by a layered system that combines traditional air defense with drone interceptors, electronic warfare, ground-based laser systems, and the DWS-1 drone wall that handles the saturation attacks that traditional systems cannot economically sustain. The cost math is the revolution. This enables the protection of energy infrastructure, cities, frontline positions, and civilian assets without exhausting expensive Patriot, NASAMS, or IRIS-T missiles, which cost hundreds of thousands of dollars per shot. Ukraine has emerged as a global leader in this niche, exporting not just technology but expertise to NATO. Exporting to NATO. Ukraine, which 4 years ago was asking NATO members for basic ammunition, is now the country that NATO comes to for expertise in the most important new domain of warfare. The drone wall technology is being exported. At least one NATO member has reportedly placed an order. Production lines have been established in France and Ukraine, with a U.S. expansion planned. The student has become the master. The country that spent 4 years improvising its defenses under fire has developed the defensive doctrine and the hardware that the most advanced military alliance in history does not have and is now purchasing. But the aerial drone wall is only one layer of the cage that Ukraine has built around Russia's army. Because the wall that is truly trapping Putin's forces is not just in the air. It is on the ground, in the earth itself, in a system of fortifications, obstacles, kill zones, and drone-integrated defensive positions that has been under construction for over a year and that now stretches across the most contested terrain in Europe. Ukraine's engineering forces have launched large-scale construction of a continuous fortification line more than 2,000 kilometers long in the Donetsk, Kharkiv, and Dnipropetrovsk regions. It is planned to consist of a plutonka, a network of thin metal wires anchored into the ground and stretched over several meters to slow infantry, a first anti-tank ditch with barbed wire at the bottom to prevent infantry from hiding, and multiple layers of obstacles and fighting positions beyond. 2,000 kilometers, the width of Western Europe from London to Warsaw, a continuous defensive line of that length, incorporating obstacles, ditches, wire networks, and drone-integrated fighting positions, stretching across the three most contested regions of eastern and southern Ukraine. Not a single trench. That is the Soviet doctrine that the war obsoleted within months. A layered, dispersed modular system of interlocking defensive zones, each designed not to stop Russian forces at the wire, but to channel them, slow them, expose them to drone engagement, and destroy them in kill pockets before they can consolidate any penetration into a breakthrough. Today, inside kill zones, when a drone detects a target in the open, it has more than an 80% chance of hitting it. These drones are also cheaper than artillery munitions. If you entrench yourself behind strong fortifications, you compel the enemy to seek a solution elsewhere. FPV drone warfare and Russia's meat grinder tactics forced Ukraine to redesign its fortifications. A new continuous kill zone system aims to stop rapid Russian assaults through layered trenches, wider fire lanes, and anti-vehicle obstacles. It consists of small trench clusters hosting drone operators who operate at ranges of over 10 kilometers and can stop infantry, vehicles, and artillery deployments before they reach firing distance. 80% hit probability when a drone detects a target in the open. That single statistic explains why Russian infantry has been suffering the casualty rates it has been suffering, why Russian armored vehicles are being destroyed faster than Russia can produce replacements, why the rate of Russian advance has collapsed from 14.9 square kilometers per day to 5.5 and falling. Russia's soldiers are being detected and destroyed by drone operators who are sitting 10 kilometers behind the front line, watching through cameras, waiting for the moment a Russian unit emerges from cover and enters the kill zone. That moment, the transition from covered position to open ground, the moment that in previous wars could be managed with suppression fire and smoke and speed, is now the moment of maximum lethality. The drone is already watching. The operator is already tracking. The hit probability is over 80%. High-intensity drone warfare has shattered assumptions about how defensive positions should be built. In 2025, Ukraine discarded Cold War-era doctrines to embrace a paradigm of scattered, low-observable, and fluid strongholds supported by distant fire control and rapidly deployed counter-uncrewed aerial systems. This brief offers a blueprint for fortification in the drone age, emphasizing end-user-informed design, dispersion, concealment, modularity, and small unit adaptability. Scattered, low observable, fluid. These are the antonyms of Soviet-era military doctrine, which concentrated forces in large, hardened strongpoints designed to resist artillery bombardment. Ukraine's new fortification philosophy is the inverse of everything Russia's military was designed and trained to fight against. Russia's artillery and missile systems are devastating against concentrated fixed positions. That is what they were built for. They are far less effective against dispersed, concealed positions that move, adapt, and are supported by drone operators who engage threats before they reach the position, rather than defending the position after the threat arrives. Drones are at the heart of Ukraine's defensive strategy, serving as a ubiquitous presence over kill zones and preventing localized Russian advances from consolidating into more substantial breakthroughs. In some sectors of the front, such as Pokrovsk, ground robotic systems are now being used to deliver the vast majority of supplies to troops. Ukrainian commanders argue that all future defensive lines should be optimized for both aerial and ground drones. Ukraine's defensive strategy goes far beyond a reliance on traditional static barriers. Over the past year, there has been a growing emphasis on dispersed, concealed, and flexible defensive networks. These small-scale fortified positions are often located underground or embedded in tree lines at strategic locations, and are supported by remote fires and decoys. Each individual node in these networks is designed to shape enemy movement rather than stop it outright, channeling attackers into deliberately prepared kill pockets without exposing defenders, ground robots delivering supplies. This is the other dimension of the cage, the one that protects Ukrainian defenders while they operate the drone wall and the kill zone system. At Pokrovsk, the city Russia spent months trying to capture, the strategic hub that Moscow massed its most elite forces to seize, ground robotic systems are now delivering the majority of supplies to frontline troops. Not humans moving through exposed terrain, carrying ammunition and food and medical supplies, while Russian drones hunt every vehicle and every person visible from above. Robots, autonomous ground vehicles traversing the same terrain that would cost Ukrainian lives to traverse on foot. The humans remain in concealed positions. The robots do the exposed work, and the drone wall keeps Russian drones from destroying either. And the numbers confirm that it is working with a consistency that is no longer deniable. Ukrainian unmanned systems forces intercepted 2,975 Russian drones in January 2026, 3,679 in February, and 7,674 in March, accelerating every month, more than doubling in a single month. The drone interception campaign is not a fixed capability. It is growing, improving, scaling. Russia is launching more drones, but Ukraine is intercepting an increasing percentage of them at an increasing total number using systems that cost less per interception than the drones they are destroying. The economics compound in Ukraine's favor every month that the system operates and improves. Ukrainian unmanned systems forces reported that its 412th Brigade Nemesis had intercepted a Shahed attack by launching its own Sting drone from an unmanned seaborne vehicle, the world's first successful use of this method to intercept a drone at sea, from a ship, not from a land-based launch platform. A Ukrainian naval surface drone, the same family of unmanned vessels that expelled the Russian Black Sea fleet from Sevastopol, was equipped with Sting interceptor drones and used to destroy a Russian Shahed over the Black Sea. The drone wall is not confined to land. It operates at sea. The cage has no gaps at the coastline. Russian drones coming in from maritime approaches face the same interception network as Russian drones coming in from land. The coverage is total. The system is ubiquitous. Now look at what all of this produces at the strategic level, the level where individual interception rates and fortification designs translate into the territorial arithmetic that determines who is winning the war. More than 4 years after columns of Russian armor stormed into Ukraine, in the largest invasion Europe has seen since World War II, Russia's army in Ukraine is struggling to advance. Analysts say the war in Ukraine may be approaching a turning point, as Kyiv seizes the initiative on the front. Russia is suffering enormous losses, losing ground that it previously held. Losing ground. Russia is not just advancing more slowly. It is losing ground it previously held. Net negative territorial gain for Russia across 4 consecutive weeks in April and early May 2026. The Institute for the Study of War documented a net loss of 45 square miles in the period from April 14th to May 12th. Russia lost 21 square miles in the week of April 28th to May 5th. Russia lost 12 more square miles in the week of May 5th to 12th. The trajectory is directional, consistent, and accelerating. And behind it is the drone wall, the kill zone fortification system, the robot supply network, the aerial interception ecosystem, all working together, all improving, all making the cost of Russian offensive action higher than the territorial gain it produces. Ukraine's latest fortifications along the front line appear far better adapted to drone-driven warfare that has evolved since 2023, as well as to the current state of the Russian army, which seems weakened and less capable of major offensive operations. Just imagine giving all this area for free for the peace that we already know will be broken as soon as they occupy the whole area. Who would be that much crazy to accept the point? That question, spoken by a Ukrainian commander describing the fortification system his forces have built, is not rhetorical. It is strategic. Every peace proposal that Russia and its sympathizers have offered Ukraine over the past 2 years has included some form of territorial concession in exchange for a ceasefire. And every time, Ukrainian military commanders have made the same calculation. If we give Russia this territory, we give Russia the positions from which it will launch the next offensive. If we surrender the ground we hold, we surrender the defensive depth we have spent years fortifying. The drone wall does not just protect Ukraine's cities, it makes the military case against territorial concession. Russian forces have dubbed the interceptors the Shahed's nightmare, demoralizing enemy operators and creating no-fly zones for their drones. Ukraine is not just defending itself, but exporting technology and expertise. By 2027, interceptor swarms are expected to neutralize 40 to 50% of Shaheds in saturation attacks, significantly reducing the burden on traditional air defense. By 2027, next year, the projection is 40 to 50% Shahed interception just from the swarm interceptor systems, on top of traditional air defense. That projection assumes continued development, continued production scaling, continued AI improvement, all of which are happening. If it is achieved, Russia's primary instrument of infrastructure destruction, the Shahed drone that has been hitting Ukrainian power plants and civilian apartment buildings and water treatment facilities every single night for years, will have a better than even chance of being destroyed before it reaches its target. The lights will stay on. The water will keep running. The civilians sheltering in basements will have reason to come out. Russia invaded Ukraine expecting to cage it, to surround its cities, to destroy its military, to force it into submission through the sheer weight of numbers and firepower. 4 years later, Russia's army is the one that is caged, trapped inside a kill zone architecture 2,000 kilometers long, hunted by drones that have an 80% hit probability when they detect movement, unable to advance at the rate that its own generals planned for, losing ground net every month, sustaining casualties faster than it can recruit replacements. The cage is not made of walls that can be seen from satellite. It is made of FPV drones hovering over kill zones, of AI-coordinated aerial barriers that launch when radar detects a threat, of ground robots delivering supplies so that human soldiers do not have to expose themselves, of dispersed, concealed positions that move and adapt before Russia's targeting can fix them, of a naval interceptor network that extends the cage to the coastline of a 2,000-kilometer fortification line that channels every Russian advance into prepared kill pockets. If successful in Ukraine, analysts believe similar systems could be deployed across Europe as part of NATO's layered air defense architecture. The war in Ukraine has forced defense planners to rethink how they protect cities from cheap, mass-produced aerial weapons. iTrade's drone wall offers something different, a fast, reusable, and adaptive shield built to meet that threat on its own terms. It is an invention born of necessity. A wall that does not stand still but flies, a wall that does not stand still. That is the most important sentence in understanding what Ukraine has built and why it is so fundamentally different from any defensive system that has existed before. Russia's army is caged, not because of walls, because of a system. An evolving, adapting, self-improving system that Ukraine built from nothing over 4 years of the most intensive warfare on European soil since 1945. Built in basements and dispersed workshops and battle-tested field positions. Built by engineers who learned drone warfare by fighting it, by operators who improved their tactics by surviving contact with the enemy, by AI systems trained on more real combat footage than any simulation ever produced. The brutal wall that trapped Russia's army is not concrete or steel. It flies, it intercepts, it learns. And Russia has not yet found an answer to it, because the system that built it is improving faster than the system trying to defeat it. 90% interception rates, net Russian territorial losses, a Russian rate of advance 2/3 slower than a year ago, a drone wall exporting to NATO, ground robots at Pokrovsk, a naval interceptor launching from an unmanned surface vessel in the Black Sea. Putin's army is not just losing ground. It is caged inside a system designed specifically to make every step forward cost more than it is worth, to make every attack fail at the last layer of the defense that rebuilds itself, to make every drone Russia sends into Ukrainian airspace meet something that costs less to launch than the drone costs to build. The cage does not have bars. It has wings, and they are everywhere.